Hello and welcome to another glorious edition of Big Man Rants Weekly Rundown, where yours truly brings to you the week's biggest news stories from the realms of comics, movies, video games, and television. And as another week goes by, so too do we get another round of epic news stories. So let's begin, shall we? So I was going to start this weekly rundown off with some Batman and Superman news, but right as I'm recording this, some late breaking news has just dropped, and it's unfortunate breaking news. The long-anticipated, long-awaited Marvel's AntMan has lost its director. This unfortunate news was literally just released in a press statement, which reads as follows. Marvel and Edgar Wright jointly announced today that the studio and director have parted ways on AntMan due to the differences in their vision of the film. The decision to move on is amicable and does not impact the release date on July 17th, 2015. A new director will be announced shortly. Now, I've posted blog posts before about this movie, in which is way too much to cover on this one video, which you can go ahead and read at bigmanrants.wordpress.com. And in the article, I give my opinions on the director and the movie as a whole, in length. But shortly, this is really unfortunate. I really enjoy Edgar Wright. I think he's a great director. I think his cinematic vision and filming style are quite unique and really interesting and incredibly well suited for this type of movie. And Wright has been attached to direct this movie, and he's had a lot of say in its writing since 2006. And that's way before the Marvel Cinematic Universe was ever even a thing. So when you hear that a director that's been signed on to a film for almost 10 years now has left the film, and so close to the release date, it's really unfortunate. And I'm really surprised that the reason why he left was creative differences, considering that Marvel has been extremely flexible with their directors as of late. They kind of just let them go out and do what they want, and the best example of that is Shane Black. They let him direct Iron Man 3, and they let him do whatever he wanted with the Extremis plotline, as well as turning the Mandarin, which is Iron Man's pretty much greatest foe in the comics, into like this M. Night Shyamalan type twist. And if they allowed him to do that, I'm really surprised they wouldn't let Edgar Wright do his vision of Ant-Man on the screen. I'm surprised that it would come down to creative differences. You don't really hear that often with Marvel. So I'd be really interested to see where the divide is between these two parties. And I do have to say, as much as I wasn't really all that gung-ho on his vision of having Scott Lang and an older Hank Pym in this movie, I'm really disappointed that we're never going to be able to see his vision of Ant-Man on the screen, because his visual style is so cool, so unique. I said in my blog post that he makes scenes that are as simple as writing a bank check seem like an action scene. He makes things look so cool on the screen, and unfortunately, we're not going to get to see that with this film. Now, I don't know the new director they're going to get for this film, but Marvel is going to be hard-pressed to find somebody as visually entertaining as Edgar Wright pull off Ant-Man on screen. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see where this goes. I guess Cinderella was right. You really don't know what you got till it's gone. Up next, we have what may be the biggest news story from the week, and that's the Zack Snyder-helmed Man of Steel sequel has finally been given its official title. Warner Brothers, after getting some advice from Sony on how to fit 7 clowns into the same car, confirmed this week that the title of the new Man of Steel sequel will be called Batman v Superman? Or is it Batman 5 Superman? Or maybe it's Batman vs. Superman. Dawn of Justice. And you know what? At this point, perfect. Warner Brothers came up with a title that so perfectly fits how messy and convoluted this movie already is. I'm actually just surprised at this point that they didn't title this film Batman Punches Superman while Wonder Woman Goes Fishing with Aquaman versus Cyborg featuring Green Lantern, maybe. This is also the point where you can go ahead and mark it down that I am no longer referring to this movie as a sequel to The Man of Steel. The second you put Batman at the beginning of the title to your movie, that's it. That officially takes Superman out of the main focus and puts Batman squarely into the limelight, whether you intended it to be that way or not. And that's fine. You didn't need to do a Man of Steel sequel if what you really wanted to do was a team-up movie. But don't promote this movie like it's a sequel to The Man of Steel, because it's clearly not. And it's not only insulting to the audience, but it's insulting to the character of Superman itself. So I guess my real issue here is, why the Versus title? You could have easily titled it Man of Steel 2, Dawn of Justice, if they're sticking with it that this is a sequel. Or if they just admit this is a team-up flick, Batman Superman, World's Finest. You know, like in the comics? Oh, yeah, but I forgot. The average moviegoers are fools. What was I thinking? Let's not do that. The audience is far too stupid to understand the term world's finest. Fucking Warner Brothers. But because the studio doesn't fully understand the characters they control, they decided to just slap a versus title on this film instead of going with, I don't know, a logical title that made sense. And when the fuck has a versus movie ever not been a cash grab that's flopped horribly? Freddy vs. Jason? Alien vs. Predator? King Kong vs. Godzilla? Dracula vs. Frankenstein? Ballistic X vs. Sever? Fuck versus movies. But really, at this point, this is just par for the course of things I find to be wrong with this film. And in my opinion, this movie will either triumph over its flaws and turn out to be a masterpiece, or it'll be a giant hunk of crap that stands as a 2-hour commercial for Justice League. Of course, I will hold final judgments for after I actually see this film, but for now, this title doesn't do anything to help its cause in my opinion. And now we've reached that second part of the weekly rundown and come to a segment I've renamed and affectionately call Check the Gate. In this segment, I'll quickly cover some news stories from the past week while giving my equally as quick opinions on them. So let's start it off. Number 1. Earlier in the week, J.J. Abrams gave us our first look into the world of Star Wars Episode 7 with a behind-the-scenes video taken on set while promoting for the Star Wars Force for Change charity. And hell yeah! Even this small glimpse of the set looks rutting awesome. From the looks of it, the set presents a desert-type exterior, which most probably means a return to Tatooine. But the coolest thing about this is the complete and utter lack of CGI. Props to Abrams for going old school here and using practical effects over CGI to present a world that should feel like it's lived in, and aliens that don't look like Photoshop creations. The less CGI, the better. And just from the looks of this, I think JJ completely gets that. And I'd say this movie is definitely on the right track, and I cannot wait to see more. Number 2. Earlier this week, the second full trailer was released for Guardians of the Galaxy, and like the first trailer, this trailer was also quite excellent. It features some better looks at Star-Lord's suit and some interesting action shots, our first audible reveal of Bradley Cooper as Rocket Raccoon, our first look at Nova Prime played by Glenn Close, Groot using his awesome tree-growing powers of awesomeness, as well as hearing him say, well, just about the only thing he can say, which is, I am Groot. And it also features our first good look at the main antagonist of the film, one of the most powerful beings of the Kree Empire, Ronan the Accuser, who, by the way, looks spot on. Like the first trailer, they also had an addition of interesting music selections using the song Spirit in the Sky. And although after they hooked some people in with a fun first trailer, I assumed like with most trailer tendencies, they'd change the tone of the second trailer to something more dark, but they didn't. And I love how they didn't, because this movie is clearly going to be a fun sci-fi action adventure flick to the tune of Indiana Jones in space, and I like that direction. I like them sticking to that direction, and I love them selling this movie exactly as that. I'm also loving in the trailer when Drax asks Star-Lord what they're going to do, and Star-Lord answers something good, something bad, a bit of both. That is badass, and I am so incredibly looking forward to this movie coming out. Number 3. It was reported this week by Deadline in an interview with Sylvester Stallone at Cannes Film Festival that the latest Expendables sequel, Expendables 3, will have its R rating toned down to a PG-13. When asked why, Sylvester Stallone replied with this: "We want to reach a broader audience of people that may have not seen our early 80s action movies, and we want to reach as many people as we can." Really? Because there's such a high demand from the current generation's audience for a parody of 80s action movies of which they've never seen. Well, by taking away the R rating, you will now get no cursing, no blood, and minimalized violence. So what, now I have to watch a bunch of stuntmen, wrestlers, and washed up movie stars try to act for 2 hours? Yeah, well, good thing it'll be on Netflix in 3 months after it gets released. Number 4. It's been a monstrously gigantic week for Gareth Edwards this week, as it's been reported that he's been signed on by Legendary Pictures to not only direct 1, but 2 sequels to his recently opened Godzilla. However, no script has been written yet, and the planned sequels are only in the earliest stages of production, so it is expected that we won't be seeing these films till at least after 2016, which turns out to be some pretty good news for Edwards, as it was also reported yesterday that he's been signed on by Disney and Lucasfilms to direct the first Star Wars spin-off film. A film that has been highly rumored to be a solo outing featuring the character of Han Solo or Boba Fett. And as I said in my review of Godzilla last week, I think Edwards is a great director. He handles characters extremely well, he tells an interesting story, he showed he could handle a property as big as Godzilla, no pun intended, and I said I couldn't wait to see what he did next. And now knowing that he'll be taking this first crack at a Star Wars spin-off film, to me, seems like a perfect perfect fit, and I am so excited to see what he can bring to the world of Star Wars. Number 5. Our first full-length trailer of Christopher Nolan's new sci-fi film Interstellar dropped earlier this week, and although Nolan does a great job of limiting the plot details of the film in this first trailer, we do get the sense that the plot will involve some sort of planetary food shortage in the future, which causes mankind to send a group of astronauts through a wormhole to search outside of our galaxy to find a solution to this problem. It's an interesting concept. As with other Nolan film trailers, I don't think we've seen the entirety of what the story will surround, but just enough to whet our appetite. And Nolan is really the master of doing this. And if this trailer has proved anything, it's that he has successfully received my intrigue. This movie's got an all-star cast and now an interesting concept for a plot, so I can't wait to see it play out on the screen. Number 6. And just quickly to wrap things up, our first glimpse of Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman in Batman vs. Superman Dawn of Justice surfaced online this week. And although I can't really say much about this since she's not in costume as Wonder Woman in this picture, I can say even without seeing her in costume, she's still way too scrawny for this role. She doesn't physically look like Wonder Woman, and she cannot act. The woman's not even a real actress as much as she's just an underwear model. I still think this is an atrocious casting choice to play the most popular female superheroine on the planet, but only basing it on this picture is unfair, so I'll wait to see her in costume to make a full judgment. Although, honestly, if somebody told me that this was her only scene in the movie, like a throwaway scene where she gets in a taxi and says, "Take me to Wayne Enterprises," I'd probably be really happy about that, since it would at least limit her enough in this movie to still give Snyder an option to change his mind later and stick someone more suited to play Wonder Woman in that role for Justice League. And that will do it for this week's Weekly Rundown. As always, thanks for watching, and if you like this video, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, don't forget to follow me on Facebook and Twitter at Big Man Rants to be kept up on all this news and more throughout the week. And remember to check out the other videos on this fine channel.